Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, March 24th. We have a continuation of an active weather pattern across much of the nation. It will bring the eastern U.S. Several chances for rain over the next several days, and in some of those higher elevation areas of interior New England still can have some accumulating snow, as well as upstate New York. For example, we have another system that will throw some rain into the mid-Atlantic region late tonight into the day on Wednesday. That looks like it may not have much of an impact at all on New England, as it kind of reaches maybe up to New York City by tomorrow, and then moves out to sea rather than up along the New England coastline. A developing situation for the late week and weekend looks like it'll result in more rainfall across much of the eastern half of the nation. Basically, there'll be low pressure out over the middle of the country, and a frontal system will extend from that low pressure all the way into the mid-Atlantic region. It'll be a slow-moving front. Could be a shower threat for Friday, Saturday, maybe even into Sunday from that particular system. And then by the middle of next week, we'll be watching the possibility of a storm that might pull out of the southern states and head to the northeast. Too early for any details on that. One of the things we've been talking about in recent days is the likelihood for more cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S. And one of the reasons I'm kind of focused on that is because as long as we have these cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S., we're liable to have a continuation of this active overall weather pattern that will result in a lot of precipitation over the foreseeable future in the eastern half of the nation. Indeed, we have teleconnection indices of the North Atlantic Oscillation and the Arctic Oscillation, the AO and NAO, dropping into, in some cases, negative territory over the next few days, and that continues to favor the idea of some cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S. in coming days. In fact, it looks like we may be colder than normal as we begin the month of April. All the way into the early part of April, looks like we'll have some cold air outbreaks to deal with in the east and the central U.S. Here's the NAO forecast in red here, and you can see it basically drops for the most part into negative territory over the next couple of weeks. And again, when the NAO and its closely related cousin called the AO are in negative territory during the wintertime and into the springtime, that tends to favor the idea that cold air masses can penetrate from way up in Canada into the central and eastern U.S. Similarly, the AO is forecasted to really drop sharply from positive territory right now, and then we'll either hang around the neutral level or perhaps even slide into negative territory. So the combination of these two certainly are a signal to me that we'll have continuation of some cold air outbreaks over the next couple of weeks into the central and eastern U.S. And again, this raises the prospects for more precipitation events, more severe weather events in the eastern half of the nation. Well, before we get to some surface forecast maps, let's take a look at the 850 millibar temperature anomalies averaged out over 5-day periods. This is using the ensemble run of the 6Z GFS. And again, I mentioned at the forefront here that we'll have some cold air outbreaks into the first week of April. We'll see that depicted here by the ensemble run of the GFS. This is the current 5-day period, and quite an area of above normal temperatures in this 5-day period. Now let's move forward here. This is now days 2 to 6, 3 to 7, and 4 to 8. And notice what's happened. This is beginning to shrink here, and normal to even below normal starting to show up in the northeastern U.S. This is days 4 to 8, which is March 27th, all the way out to the beginning of April 1st. Now watch what happens at this point. This below normal area starts to intensify over the mid-Atlantic region, over pretty much the eastern third of the nation. This is now out days to 11. We're talking about the very first week of the month of April. Here we go. It just continues to intensify here. We go all the way out to days 12 to 16, which is as far out as this particular model run goes. This is now April 4th to April 9th, and a large part of the nation, at least the eastern half of the nation, running at below normal temperatures as we go into the month of April. So again, we definitely appear to have some more cold air outbreaks to deal with in the central and eastern U.S. going right into the beginning of the month of April. Now, in terms of the surface forecast maps, let's take a look at the Canadian model run, the GEM, from last night at 0Z. Had one storm that impacted much of the mid-Atlantic and northeastern U.S. on Monday. A second storm already beginning to take shape over the south central U.S. Let's move forward here. And that does not go all the way up the New England coastline. It does have an impact. Here we are on Wednesday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, maybe from New York City, where a very close call between rain and snow in New York City, at least for part of this system, all the way down to D.C. Looks like they'll get some precipitation. But again, this particular system looks like it may spare New England as it moves more east-northeast rather than northeast up along the New England coastline. But again, expect some rainfall from D.C., Philadelphia to New York City. And in New York City and its nearby suburbs to the north and west, it's going to be a close call between rain and a mixture of rain and snow. That kind of winds down tomorrow evening. Again, doesn't go up the New England coastline, rather more east-northeast out over the western Atlantic. Then we'll start to form another system out over the middle of the country by the end of the work week. Here we are now Friday morning. Notice this area here. What this represents is really a warm frontal system, or it's going to turn out to be kind of a nearly stationary front extending from this low pressure area out over the middle of the country all the way into the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region. The threat for showers will return on Friday, continue into Saturday in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor associated with that frontal system. That low pressure eventually kicks on out and moves to the north and east. But again, periods of rain in the Midwest, in the Mid-Atlantic region, Friday, Saturday time frame, all the way out into Sunday. We may be impacted by this low pressure area. By that time, a cold front will cause some showers in the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. And again, interior sections of New England can have some frozen precipitation, including some accumulating snow all the way through this ongoing active weather pattern. That finally clears the coast here by the early part of next week. Here we are now Monday morning. That system has cleared the coast. Another cold air outbreak arrives the early part of next week. And again, looks like we'll have some cold air outbreaks right into the beginning of April. At this time, we'll start looking down to the southern U.S. And again, there's a chance for a storm to pull out of the southern U.S. and head up to the northeast by about the middle part of next week. So the continuation of cold air outbreaks for the next couple of weeks into the central and eastern U.S. from Canada, all kind of signaled to us by these teleconnection indices known as the North Atlantic Oscillation and the Arctic Oscillation, which slide into negative territory, and a continuation of precipitation events for much of the eastern half of the nation over the next several days. It looks like some rain for the Mid-Atlantic region late tonight and Wednesday, and then more unsettled conditions Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian, and that's it for now.